this is an interesting story about a trading app which has been hit by a data breach affecting 7 million people. Let's talk to Martin Smith. He's the founder of the Security Awareness Special Interest Group. Martin, you're very welcome to Talk Radio this morning.
Good morning, Peter. It's lovely to be here.
Martin, what has actually happened here?
This is what they call a ransomware attack, and it's just huge at the moment and growing massively. This is where criminals inject your systems with a bug, virus, or whatever, malware of some sort, and it encrypts all the data, and then you can't get access to your data until you pay them some money.
So so how would you find out about this? You just you open your emails or your
First thing you know about it, you'll open up your screen and it's just a big screen that says, look, you can't access your data anymore. You have to pay us some money. And it's very, very effective.
So do people pay money for it then?
Well, this is a huge debate. Do you pay or do you not pay? And my view is it's on a case-by-case basis. A lot of organizations do pay. And interestingly, they get their data back because the criminals, they have a system here that depends on a bizarre form of good faith. So that if you do get a ransomware attack and you do pay your money, you're reasonably sure you'll get your data back until the next time.
What's the difference between, I mean, this is fascinating. What is the difference between organizations and individuals getting compromised here? And the kind of individuals, would they be sort of high profile people? Would they be people who are, members of governments, or who would sort of individuals targeted be necessarily?
Well, the real bonus here is money. They're doing it for money, basically. So they're going to be going towards organizations first and foremost that have got some resource. Obviously, they attacked me. I wouldn't have any money to give them. But,
oh, me too. Yeah, I mean, if the ransom was 20p or something, I could probably pay it.
But no, it's mainly businesses, and the more high-profile ones, the better. The bigger, the better. And of course, all organizations of any size, in any sector, anywhere in the world, they're all hugely open to this because the way that they get in is through the users. They get in under the radar. You can put as many defenses as you like in place, but all it's going to take is for one user on your system to click on the wrong link and they're in. And then it's open season. Individuals are targeted, but organizations mainly, and ones that often they're targeted when they're already distracted elsewhere with other issues, other problems, and their defenses are down. It's cruel. It's very effective. It's wicked, and it's growing like topsy.
It's interesting you said it's growing like topsy because obviously I'm just looking at this absolutely terrifying statistic here saying that cyber attacks have risen 93% in the first half of 2021. I mean, how on earth can we target this? How can we fight back? Because what often happens, of course, is the law is always so far behind technology. The law innovates or even the mechanisms to catch these people, whether either through law enforcement or other means, innovate, and then the criminals innovate, and then it sort of keeps going essentially.
Well, I think the real tragedy here is that these attacks are not in the slightest bit sophisticated. They're very, very easy to perform. It's very easy for the criminal to get in and effect their damage. That's the bad news. The good news is it's also therefore very, very easy to fix. There's an awful lot of work gone into technical fixes to detect these things. But a lot of it's down to awareness and people being aware not to click on false links because that's the way the criminal gets in. There's very little new in computer crime. I've always said it's just old tricks, old crimes with new tricks, and it's just bringing things up to date. I mean, if you look at how they get in, it's a bit like you're asleep upstairs and the burglar comes in through the front door because you've left it open. And the trick is just to keep the doors locked, and that means keep the systems locked and keep your users and your staff aware of the danger.
So what should you do, A, to prevent this, and then secondly, if you have been targeted, if you get one of these emails that sort of says, right, you've got to pay up. I mean, what sort of sums are we talking here?
Well, I think the first thing that every organization must do is make sure they continuously back up their data. Because if you are attacked and your data is encrypted, you can fall straight back onto your latest backup. And if that was relatively recent, then the damage is recoverable very quickly. You just tell the crim to get lost and you reload your system and away you go. The tragedy is, again, that most people don't do that too often. And it's a real wake-up call when you look for your backup system and it's not there. And when you do backup, make sure you test that backup as well. It's no good having a backup unless it works. And in terms of how you prevent it, again, as I said, that's got to be down a lot to people being aware at home and at work. These scams are not limited to just corporations and big business. So many individuals are targeted by scams, not necessarily the ransomware, but certainly, scams where they get in between you and your bank, for example.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that actually. What are the ways to keep your personal data safe? What's the best way to do that?
I think you need to be constantly aware of what you're revealing to the world. You must use things like strong passwords. Don't share your passwords with people. Make sure you don't have the same password for different accounts. So don't use the same password for your online banking as you would do for your online shopping or whatever.
But how do you remember all these passwords? This is the problem that a lot of, I personally have this problem in that you have so many different passwords, you forget it, you go to the, I'm constantly resetting my passwords for things because I've forgotten them.
It is a big issue. I always said that you just choose something that's very, very difficult for me to guess, but very, very easy for you to remember. And it doesn't have to be a long jumble of letters. You can just use a combination of words and numbers. And there are so many different things that you can, and keep your passwords to a minimum, obviously. And for lower sensitivity applications, you can use simpler passwords. But for the real stuff, like your bank and your shopping and your personal stuff like that, you've really got to be very careful. We all now live on the internet. Cyberspace is a wonderful place, but like any city, there are areas you wouldn't go, and there are areas where you need to be careful, and that's true with cyberspace as well. There's a lot you can do to help yourselves.
How does the UK fare globally in terms of tackling cyber crime? I mean, how do we sort of stack up against other nations across the world?
I think we do really well. I think the UK government and the National Cybersecurity Centre have done huge amounts over the last 10 years. I've watched the progress, frankly, in awe. And certainly when we stack up against the rest of the world, we are streets ahead. But that's not to say that there's still not a long way to go. We are, ahead of the pack, but the pack is really falling behind anyway. So we need to be working the whole time as UK PLC to make this great nation a safe and secure place to do business online. I come from an old world of security where there were two chaps being chased by a tiger, and the first one says, "I hope he can run faster than this tiger," and the other one says, "I just hope I can run faster than you." And that's true with security. You need to make sure that the criminals will go somewhere else because you just made it that little bit more difficult for them to attack you. They'll just move on and go to the next one. It's not personal. This is crime on an industrial scale. There are factories of criminals around the world, and they're just working the numbers. So the minute you put up the slightest defense, they'll move on to the next place. So even the simple things work really, really well.
Okay, Martin Smith, founder of the Security Awareness Special Interest Group. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on Talk Radio.